Good evening and welcome back to Farmer Analytics. I'm Carly, and tonight we're going to finish pulling our potatoes out of the ground. If you didn't see my previous video on pulling potatoes and the first two varieties we did, you're going to want to check that out. We did Purple Viking and we also did Soroya varieties, and we planted 5 pounds of each of those and then pulled up about 30 pounds of each variety, which was super exciting. So this variety is the last to die off, and this one is German Butterball. And this variety, we only planted about 2.5 pounds. So we'll see how much yield we get off of 2.5 pounds in the ground. So let's get digging. Pretty excited with what I just pulled out of the ground, hoping that there's a lot more from where this came from. Here is the original seed potato. Look at how amazing these potatoes are. One of my worst friends in the garden is stinging nettle, and I just grabbed a hold of it. This is stinging like crazy. I definitely need to get myself a pair of garden gloves so that this doesn't happen. Okay, so I went and found myself a pair of garden gloves. Hopefully these protect me against that stinging nettle because it still hurts. So I've just finished clearing this of all the weeds and finally ready to start digging. You can see some of them I left here. They kind of fell off the roots, so I just left them there. And we'll go through, we're basically from really small area, from this stake here to about this popsicle stick here. So we don't have too much to dig, but we could potentially get a good amount of potatoes out of here. This is an apple from our greenhouse apple tree, way in the back over there. And it's actually ready, which is really early for here in Vermont. Our apples usually don't ripen until about September, and this is super exciting. It's still a little bit tart, but it's super sweet. So this is kind of a fun, different activity than we've been doing all week. This week's been a lot of preserving in the house, and it feels really good to get back outside and do a little bit more in the dirt and in the greenhouse. This week we went to a local farm. We picked up 100 ears of sweet corn, and we canned and preserved that so that we can eat it all year long. So the way we did with this was we basically cut all the corn off of each cob, and then we raw packed in pint-sized mason jars and pressure can them so that they can stay stable on the shelf all winter. Oh, here's the seed potato. happy with the size of these potatoes. They're not the biggest potatoes I've ever seen, but they're not bad. They're pretty average. So our plan for all these potatoes is to pressure can them. So these essentially will be peeled and then chopped up and then pressure canned. And so one thing that I'm noticing on this specific variety that we didn't have a problem with the other varieties that we had dug up probably at this point 2 weeks ago is that the skin is pretty tender. So one thing that happens when you maybe don't leave them in the ground long enough is that this skin really just peels right off. So this tells me they need a little bit more time to cure underground. So that really speaks to the fact that German Butterball are a late season variety. So the other two were ready earlier than this one. And even though this one had flopped over and looked pretty dead, there still was definitely green left in those leaves. And clearly it needed maybe a little bit more time underground to cure. Does anybody else love finding worms in their garden? It just tells me that things are good and there's life in the soil. Okay, so this is our harvest for the 2.5 pounds that we planted. This probably feels about, honestly, half of what we got from the ones that were planted at 5 pounds. So I'll put a total weight on the screen here for you guys to see. My guess is 14 pounds. We'll see. Holy mackerel. Oh no. This tomato is outrageous. It's absolutely giant. We're at the point in the season that we are harvesting tomatoes almost every day. I like to harvest them just when they're blushing, just when they start to get red, not when they're totally ripe yet, because I don't want to leave them on the vine that long. I think this variety here is Cherokee Purple, one of my favorites for BLTs. And I believe this is... So I actually don't know what this one is. I checked the tags, but the tags, I guess, are all wrong. Fun story about the tomatoes is that when they were this small as seedlings, our 2 toddlers may have knocked the entire seedling tray over, and I spent about an hour picking every little tiny seedling back up and replanting it. And the varieties at this point are not correct. So we are just going to enjoy tomatoes as whatever they look like and whatever they taste. I cannot give you any true names. This one I do remember just because of the color of it. We grow this one every year and we love the striations and the colors of it. But other than that, any red tomato is what it is because there are no tags in here anymore. So the plan for these tomatoes is to let them ripen fully on the counter, and then we're going to go through, remove the hard centers on them, and then they're basically going to go right into the freezer. So we will use these for tomato soup, which is our absolute favorite. We don't make a lot of pasta sauce or pizza sauce or any of that, but tomato soup is top on our list. That is a ready-to-go meal for us. It's a simple water bath procedure to make that tomato soup, and we put fresh herbs in there, and it is just absolutely a taste of summer in the middle of winter. And if you're like me, you like a good grilled cheese on the side to go with that tomato soup. Somebody's been chewing on this one, so we will give it to the chickens. Holy mackerel. I don't even know where to start. I can't even get my finger in there. Figure out where the stem is. Whoops. Whoa. You guys, this may be the biggest tomato I've ever grown. It's definitely not the prettiest, but it's massive. Now this tomato variety I believe is called Red Racer or Tess's, and this is also one of our favorites because it is so much fun for our little toddlers to come out and pick. These are like sweet candies for them. So while we're out here, we are getting some pruning done too, removing some of these slightly diseased looking leaves and really just pulling everybody up, trellising them if they need to be stood up. Pruning is really something that we do continuously all season long. We're always pruning whenever they look like they need to have a little bit more airflow or space, and this is really good to mitigate disease and anything that's going to crop up for your tomatoes. And it also allows the plant to put more energy into the fruits. So if we take away some of this foliage that it necessarily need, like suckers and diseased foliage, the plant's not going to be working as hard on the foliage, and it's going to put more energy into those fruits. And essentially you end up with more and bigger tomatoes. Okay, we are done pruning for the night. We have pruned this whole tomato row all the way down into the tomatillos and into cucumbers as well. They all needed a massive trim, and we're feeling good. So it is getting late. It is almost 9 o'clock if I had to guess, and we're losing daylight, so we'll end the video here. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time.